Hey, Robbie. I want to address some of these things in a little bit out of order, and I hope that won't be too troublesome. The first thing is simply to dispose of this whole what is crunchy question. It's something someone else said. Who knows what they mean by it? Who knows how they think it's going to apply to Sorcerer? Who knows how it applies to Sorcerer? It's just a quagmire to wander off into that, kind of like one of these bouncing balls. Academics are fascinated by questions like that. Bounces by, and we're all like, ooh. Well, let it go by, and let's talk a little bit about some of this sorcerer prep, principles. So, taking a look at your two statements, they look like, of course, tons of fun. I recommend a couple of things about them. First of all, that the second one actually contain the actual location, not like a superlative statement which you have, which suggests that it's a singular place, but it actually has no anchor for the reader to contribute their own responses to. If you say the most magical place in the world, then they're going to be sitting there waiting to see what you mean by it. Whereas if you say the most magical place in the world, Cancun, then they're going to try to fill that in and make that connection. And that's a good thing, because that precise cognitive response on their part is where ideas and principles and thoughts about play, feelings actually come from. So you need that in there, a place. I do like this principle that you have stated, which is that the players need to be all in, and that is much more of a matter of commitment to what's going on and its thematic punch and possibilities in play, and not so much about knowing every last little, combat detail so you don't get screwed and stuff like that. But let's take a look at some of the things that can aid and work against being all in. One of them is knowing the demon's abilities. It's true that I have been skating over that a little bit, particularly when it comes to the exigencies of online or screen play. And I can feel that it's been sort of harming the players in experience in the very first session or two. They're not really sure. They can't order their demons around if they don't have a strong idea of what the demons can do. So, two solutions. One solution, which I don't suggest, is to do a very kind of GURP style, blow by blow, point by point, tutorial on every last little demon ability and every last little thing that this demon is set up to do or could do. I think it's a little bit better to find a middle ground whereby you tell them some very basic things that the demon can actually do and habitually can do and certainly has done for the character already. Coming, of course, out of what they originally told you. You can see in some of my sorcerer videos about how people say, well, I want to be able to, freeze people in place and stuff like that. You go, oh, okay. And then later you say your demon can freeze people in place. And you don't really have to do much more than that, just sort of confirming that you've built in what they said. If you round that out in some way, and it's something that they really just don't know about, you can tell them. But this leads to the main point, which is that in order to really know the demon abilities, they really do have to see them in play. Part of this is just the basics of any kind of learning of this type, and another part of that is expectant stuff from other games. Both of the players in this game talked about mind control when they were making up their demons, and rather than going into a big debate, I gave the demons abilities that harm other characters' ability to resist what's being told to them, but it is not puppeteer and, oh, well, now you love me, or anything like that kind of mind or personality control as directly as they originally said. So we're just rolling through it in play, and sometimes people make it through, sometimes they don't. You may have seen in the videos, if you watched them, that I played Livia, the cult character, C, not K, the kind of cult character's mom interaction, where she tries to do that to her mother, and I played it literally as the demon psychically punching the mom and making her less able actually to resist what Livia was talking about. So I built it that way. So anyway, there's ways to do it so that they know the demon can do X, but then they really get it when they experience the demon doing X in the specific language of Sorcerer. This applies double in terms of something in your comment that alarmed me a little bit, to humanity and what you completely describe in completely solid analytical terms. What is humanity, the heart of play, what the players have to be most all in for. Completely agree with all of that, but that is third party about Sorcerer talk. It is not actually doing it. And you can kill exactly what you're shooting for in discussion. I'm not so romantic as to say, oh, talking about something will destroy it. That's not what I mean, so much as just a process of internalization. The process of internalization is going to come through activity in play anchored in the imaginative events. So, when it comes to the humanity material, as the game master, check early and often, roll game rolls early and often. And not based on what you're trying to teach them, but based on your participant level, intuitive, and, if I may use the word, moral sense of what you think about what is happening and being done. That's kind of shitty of you, or boy, that was ruthless, or, whoa, would you really do that? Okay. All of those are your cue for yourself to say, time for a humanity check. You are working off the statements and off of the imagined material just as much as the others are, and so, or more so at this point. And so therefore, that provides all the context you need for those somewhat non-verbal, non-analyzed responses to make sense. So that actually happens. So do all that. In line with that too, remind the players that the sorceress rituals are always available to them. 3 of them will require humanity checks. So when and if they summon, contact, or bind, and contact is a very useful ritual, by the way, and I highly recommend reminding them about it. When they do that, then humanity checks are part of that picture. So just apply the rules and be as forthright as you can to yourself about when you do it, and the players will pick it up so fast that all-in factor regarding humanity will define play rather than be something you're striving toward in play. Something of the same message applies to the binding roll for the demon, which has the disadvantage in some ways, or advantage if you can find it, of being a pre-play, a flashback almost, or, we did this, you did this already kind of scene. You may recognize from Dogs in the Vineyard that Vincent adopts the technique directly from Sorcerer for the conflict that a player character may have had or did have before play begins. And in many ways, however, Dogs in the Vineyard demonstrates how to overdo it by running it as a played scene. And so many groups in playing that game get really weirdly tangled up in it because it's a storytelling about what happened before. There tends to be this negotiation about every step of what the conflict is about, so that everybody is storytelling and bouncing ideas and pitching ideas about it as they go, and you end up with sort of a bloodless conference, or too many ideas, too many possibilities, what did happen, what didn't happen, kind of negotiation rather than playing a scene. So I don't suggest playing the binding scene extremely literally as, okay, now we're going to play through what you already did, because for whatever reason, maybe it's not intrinsic to the doing that, but it is very automatic given everything we know and do already about the hobby, that people get all tangled up and don't know if they're playing, narrating, or negotiating about. And it's a real problem, actually. Just realized I'm ranting because it is such a problem. So, therefore, the best thing to do is, yes, to play the binding scene or situation, but in extremely telegram style verbiage. 2 or 3 descriptive sentences between the game master and the player. That will be really, really helpful to go a very long way toward your goal in doing this, seeing the roles and stuff like that. But doing a little bit more, even a little bit more than that, will set you back or misdirect them proportionately worse. So it's very much, the kind of uncanny valley dip thing where you need to get some serious value from a certain amount of effort toward a particular direction and not go too far with it. All right, those are my thoughts. Hope they're helpful, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your game.